So for those of you who didn't see my video explaining what the Amazon Associates program is and how it's going to work with this channel, let me do a brief recap on that for a moment. So Amazon has created a program called the Amazon Associates program that helps YouTube creators such as myself in a way to monetize our channel. Because as you probably know, YouTube has become stricter and stricter about what they want to monetize on YouTube for their platform. It's becoming very hard for YouTube creators to make money from their videos the way they used to, or to grow their channels with income the way that they used to. The reason why is they're saying it's not advertiser friendly. Point in case, when you report the subjects that mainstream media doesn't talk about, it's not advertiser friendly. So they won't monetize your videos. So if you do shopping on Amazon, if you make purchases, you go to the link below, you click on it, it takes you to Amazon just like you normally would go to Amazon. You can then search for whatever product it is you wanted to buy, and by making that purchase after clicking on the link, this channel will get a commission of that sale. And it is a great way to help support this channel and help us spread our message and grow this channel so that we can reach more and more people out there. So we thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoy the video. So now that Michael Bloomberg is in the race and running for the Democratic nomination for 2020, mainstream media has now found yet one more person that they want to kiss ass to. Pure and simple. And he is their perfect guy for the job. Used to be a Republican that went independent and is now running as a Democrat. So in other words, he is like most of the corporate, bought and paid for Democrats. That's what you're basically implying here with your move to the Democratic Party. Because as many of you know who've studied where the Democratic Party has gone since Reagan, they've become more and more and more corporatist, incorporating a lot of old school Republican economic policies and whatnot into their plans. Okay. Old school Republican policies, by the way, that benefited people, up at the top, not as much as the bottom. Now, of course, the Democrats haven't strayed from their message of trying to help the working class people. They're just selling you oceanfront property in Arizona. Okay? To put it plain and simple. They're telling you, our plan's going to do X, Y, and Z for you. Well, you know what? Republicans do the same thing. Okay? But just like Republicans back in the old days would tell you, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to help you out so well, and it didn't happen. That's what Democrats are doing now when they're telling you that all these free trade deals like the TPP were supposed to be great. Okay? So, that being said, Chris Cuomo on CNN, such a trusted news network, decided to take it upon himself to talk about why Michael Bloomberg might be such a great candidate all of a sudden for the 2020 race. And then Chris Cuomo invited on a very, very knowledgeable person, someone who has great political acumen, and we should all be listening to his advice because this guy definitely knows what he's talking about. He invited on Anthony Scaramucci. Yes, you heard me correct. Anthony Scaramucci. And this guy is going to discuss why Michael Bloomberg would be Donald Trump's number one threat in a general election. So, let's hear Mr. Scaramucci's expert opinion on the matter.
Another topic with you about concern right now. Bloomberg What do you think Bloomberg means to Trump?
So I think the president would be very intimidated by a guy like Michael Bloomberg. You could just go back to some of the statements that Corey Lewandowski has made about Michael Bloomberg. When it didn't seem likely that Mayor Bloomberg would be entering the race, people asked people like Corey, myself, Dave Bossie, who would be the number one person that President Trump would be the most worried about, and it would be Mike Bloomberg. He's a New Yorker. He could withstand the onslaught of the president's bullying. He's worth probably 5 to 8 times the president's net worth. He could spend a fortune defending himself and getting ads up in all the areas of the country that he needed to get those ads up. And if Mike Bloomberg got the nomination, it's very clear to me that he would beat Trump, because in those 11 swing states, the level of moderation in Michael Bloomberg, the pro-business nature, but the social progressiveness, that kind of weaving, if you will, would smice the president in those states. So the path for Michael Bloomberg, though, to win that nomination, you'd have to ask a Democrat about that, because it seems like the party has lurched so far to the left. If Elizabeth Warren has the polling numbers that she has by proposing this socialist agenda, one would have to worry about the path that Mayor Bloomberg would have to get that. But no question, he would be the number one threat.
Okay. Where should we begin with this? So basically, Mr. Scaramucci, the trustworthy expert, we've spent time on a news network. We've given him time to run his mouth and educate us all on the facts. Okay. He's a threat to Trump because he has enough money to run ads to defend himself from Trump. Now, what is the problem with that? Well, Hillary Clinton raised more money than Donald Trump in 2016. Hillary Clinton's not sitting in the Oval Office. In today's age, it is about more than just how much money you raise as to whether or not you could win. See, social media has become a wonderful platform for politicians to use to get their messages out to the American public without having to buy TV time on all these networks. Okay? So that's first and foremost. But Hillary Clinton definitely raised more money, and she ain't president. Now, here's something else that I find interesting. Go look up CNN and Michael Bloomberg and watch some clips. There's a clip out there from maybe 2 or 3 days ago where they have done polling about the 2020 field, the Democratic primaries. And they polled, supposedly, now, you know, I don't really trust polls, honestly, about as far, I trust them about as far as I could throw my house. Okay? I'm not very trustworthy of a lot of these polls. Because keep in mind, pretty much every poll in the land was saying Hillary Clinton was going to win in a landslide in 2016. Yeah. To use Lewis Black's cliche, you did such a crackerjack job, all you pollsters out there. Okay? But CNN did a poll. Okay? And they polled Democrat voters, would they rather see someone else in the race? They had 3 names in that video clip and percentages after about either yes or no. Michelle Obama got, like, I think almost 50% or something like that. And her no's, that they wouldn't vote for her, was really little, according to this poll. Okay? Hillary Clinton was almost like half and half. And then I think only, like, she had basically the same amount of people that said yes, close to the same amount of people that said no. But Michael Bloomberg had like 6% yes and like 32% no. So clearly, according to CNN's poll here, he isn't resonating worth a crap with the Democrats. And so if he's not really resonating that good with the Democrats, gee, I wonder if there was just some sort of, thing in the past we could go to look at as an example as to what's going to happen when an unpopular nominee in the Democratic Party runs against Trump. If only we could get some comparison. Oh, that's right. Hillary Clinton was about as popular as a turd in a punch bowl. And she lost. So what do you think's going to happen to someone like Michael Bloomberg, who is not for legalizing marijuana, was for stop and frisk in New York? I mean, go look at all of Michael Bloomberg's policies. He's certainly not on board with what the majority of the Democratic Party wants. And so that's going to be Trump's biggest threat. How do you figure Mooch? Seriously, how do you figure that? Because I'll counter you one back. There was reports that came out, maybe a month or two back, that behind closed doors, Trump was telling donors he's more afraid of running against people, basically, like Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, or Andrew Yang, because of their policies about getting money back to the American people or their debt forgiveness and things like that. He's like, that's tough to beat. That's going to be tough to beat. So he's telling donors that, supposedly, behind closed doors. Now, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't, but I have every right to believe it because there's definitely a grassroots movement behind it. There's not that much grassroots support behind people like Michael Bloomberg and Joe Biden, and so on and so forth. Those are the Wall Street candidates. Those are the big corporation candidates. Those are the people that are bought and paid for by big money. Okay? That's not grassroots. That's not working class people. That's people who have been keeping working class down and trying to screw the working class, funding a politician to keep them in office. Pure and simple. Pure and simple. Okay? So, how do you figure, Mooch, that Bloomberg is the biggest threat to Trump? And again, the only thing I heard from you is that, he's got the money. He's got the money. That doesn't mean anything. Obviously, the money is helpful, but it is far, far from the only thing that's going to be a factor here. Your message has to be popular. And according to CNN, the network we're talking to this guy on here, okay, according to their own poll, he's not polling well with the Democratic voters. So that means he's got almost no chance of getting through the Democratic primary in the first place, which Mooch at least said, he's going to have to go so far out to the left, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? Okay, here's the deal. Here's the deal, people, okay? If you don't agree with the policies of that party, and basically what Mooch said is, Elizabeth Warren is polling so high because of what he called her socialist policies. And clearly you've got some issue with those policies. And you don't think that's the proper way, but yet that's what's polling high in the party. Okay. Got a problem here. Why are you running in that party? Oh, well, maybe you say that because you don't have a chance in a third-party system. True. But if you got all that money, someone else made one hell of an attempt as a third-party candidate back in 1992. Matter of fact, he actually pulled ahead above the Democrat and the Republican in the polls until he dropped out and got back in the race. That was Ross Perot. So if your plan was really going to be that great, the majority of the country considers themselves independents. Why didn't you go independent? You already left the Republican Party and went independent. Why'd you go to the Democratic Party if you have a problem with the policies that modern Democrat base want? Why'd you do that for? See, that makes no sense to me. Okay? So if you don't agree with what that policy's doing, or party is doing policy-wise, don't get in. Don't run for their nomination. Clearly, they don't want what you're selling. They're not going to buy what you're selling. They're not interested in your policy prescription because it's not what they like. It's not what they want. It's not what they support. So why did you get into the race? Because pure and simple, it's like this. The status quo is scrambling at this point. Anyone possible that represents the status quo and the corporatists is trying to jump in this race to save their asses, to keep people like an Andrew Yang or a Tulsi Gabbard or even Bernie Sanders from trying to get that nomination. They are trying to ride this horse all the way to a contested convention and then give it to a corporatist establishment candidate. Whether that be Bloomberg, whether it be Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, doesn't matter. Buttigieg, doesn't matter. That's what their end game here is. They don't want these people to be getting the nominee. Or to be their nominee and get the nomination, rather. Okay? They don't want it. Because they know that when someone like that takes control of their party as their nominee, their gravy train is over, man. It's done. It's done. The goose is not going to be laying golden eggs for them anymore. And for the first time, and possibly a long time, the Democratic Party, at least in some aspects, might actually be pushing some agendas that are really popular with the American public, such as foreign policy and, policy here at home with your health care, for example, making sure that you get health care. And remember, it's only the modern Democratic Party that moved to the right after Reagan that thinks that something like Medicare for all is such a wild concept. Harry Truman was for Medicare for all. Ted Kennedy was for Medicare for all. Okay? I'm not sure if RFK was for a Medicare for all type system or not, but JFK definitely was. Okay? Lyndon Johnson was for Medicare for all. Even Jimmy Carter was for a Medicare for all type system. But they could never get it through. They could never get it through. Okay? And by all aspects, I would say out of the people that I named, Jimmy Carter was probably my least likable of them all. But nonetheless, I mean, that's just reading off how many old school Democrats were for that system and wanted something like that put in place. And then, of course, the Democrats shifted to the right just after Reagan, right around the time of Bill Clinton. And that's when we started getting things like NAFTA and all these lousy trade deals. And there you go. I mean, the rest is history. And when Obama was the president, we couldn't even, as Kyle Kalinske said over on Secular Talk, talking about this very issue, we couldn't even get a public option under Obama, which we should have had Medicare for all anyway, but we couldn't get either one. Okay? And so, to think that this corporatist rich guy is just going to come in and he's going to be the shining hope of the Democratic Party. Yeah. Keep dreaming, man. Even if somehow you make it through that Democratic primary, you get to the general election, Trump is very popular with his base. And you, apparently, are not that popular with yours, which means strong turnout for Trump, weak turnout for you. I don't see how that makes you a huge threat or the biggest threat to Donald Trump when there are other people running the Democratic primary who could rally up the Democratic base and make a strong turnout in that election and actually present real threat to defeating Donald Trump by pulling all those people out to vote, and possibly even winning over some Republican votes as well, because some of their policies poll well amongst Republicans. People like Tulsi Gabbard, people like Andrew Yang, people like Bernie Sanders even. Okay? They are the biggest threats to Donald Trump, not some corporate rich guy who has many policies that are more in line with swamp Republicans and not the modern Democratic Party or independents. That is certainly not going to be the big threat to Donald Trump, and it is not going to win any election against Donald Trump in 2020. Pure and simple. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Independent Report. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up and like the video. Also, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to ask or topics you'd like us to cover, please drop a comment in the comment box below. And also, please subscribe to the channel. And if you do subscribe, ring that bell so you'll stay up to date when we drop new videos and you'll get notifications of it. And also, please support us on Patreon. Funds are going to be used to grow and improve this channel so we can reach more and more people and spread the message that the mainstream media doesn't want to tell people. We hope you'll tune in next time.